Hi everyone, Howard Gearhauser here. On the line you have my dad, Dr. Richard Gearhauser. In today's video, we are going to talk about fluoride and fluoridated products, fluoridated water. There's a lot of research showing that fluoride can create a lot of confusion and a lot of, I guess you could say, health conditions within our body. It's not a great thing from the latest research. So we want to dive a little bit deeper into it and then give you some options of what you can do instead of using the fluoridated products or drinking the fluoridated water. So Dad, what is fluoride? Why is this such a health concern?
All right, fluoride is a natural element, so it is in nature. Fluoride just happens to be have toxic effects on biological systems, and so one of the big problems is that somehow, and I don't know the total history of how it came to be that the United States has fluoridated water. In fact, I think 75% of the municipal water supplies in the United States fluoridate their water. They add fluoride, which has no health benefit. Now, the idea behind why they add fluoride to water is fluoride does become incorporated into the enamel and teeth, and the enamel and teeth is a crystalline structure, and so when fluoride becomes part of that crystal, it makes the crystal smaller, so there's less opening, less way for bacteria to get in there. So that's the reason dentists coat your teeth with fluoride, and they tell you to, all the tooth. If you go into Walgreens or the mainstream drugstores, every single tube of toothpaste has fluoride added to it. The American Dental Association says, yes, we stamp our seal of approval on this. So dentists paint your teeth with fluoride, tell you to use fluoride toothpaste, and then it's gone to where, well, water supplies are spiked with fluoride. Now, there are some states that don't do that. So if you live in Hawaii or Montana, there's not a very great chance that your water is fluoridated. If you happen to be a member of Congress, Washington, D.C., it's 100% fluoride. So maybe you can make some correlation there. Brain damage, Congress, Washington, D.C., brain damage, I don't know, just putting it out there. But there are studies that show that places that fluoridate the water, the children have a lower IQ than places that don't. That's pretty scary. That's published in a major peer-reviewed journal done by Harvard researchers, and there's others research that shows the same thing. So it has an effect on brain development, brain function, and so it's probably not a good thing. The rest of the world, in Europe, most of Europe does not fluoridate their water. So it's interesting, how the United States seems to, be susceptible to these, these false beliefs just keep getting, continue to go, even though the evidence shows, what, you want your kid to have a lower IQ versus possibly having fewer cavities. Now, is the science established that this, having smaller crystals in your enamel protects you from cavities? Well, and then the dentists will pull up a study and they'll show a graph where cavity incidence is going down, and they're using fluoridated water, so cavities are going down over time. So I go, look, it works. We fluoridate the water, the cavities go down. Trouble is, if you graph a place, a city that doesn't fluoridate the water, the cavities also go down. So those graphs, which are what kind of led us to, oh, we got to fluoridate the water, we want to have less cavities. It doesn't matter whether you fluoridate your water or not, the cavities have been in decline. So we falsely, possibly falsely attribute that to the fluoride but it's probably other reasons why cavities are going down, because they're going down in places that don't fluoridate their water. And then there's natural fluoridation. So in some places like in India and in some other countries, there's high fluoride levels in the water. Well, that can be harmful. Fluoride is bad for your bones. It's bad for your teeth. Fluorosis of your teeth. You ever see someone that has dark spots all over their teeth? Well, that's called fluorosis, and that's when you're getting too much fluoride. Too much of it gets embedded in your teeth, and your teeth become mottled. They have brown spots, and you'll see people like that, and that happens in certain areas of the world where the water naturally has too much fluoride.
So the fluoride, in terms of it affecting your body, does it come just from drinking the water, or is it something that if it touches your skin can affect you? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, fluoride, yes, if you swallow it, it goes into your system. So if you're using toothpaste, you swallow and absorb a little bit of that through the mucosa. So I always have used, my adult life, fluoride-free toothpaste. You usually have to buy that at like a health food store. In fact, most of the toothpaste in a health food store will tend to be fluoride-free. But if you go into Walgreens, it might be difficult to find one that's fluoride-free, although this is becoming more and more well-known, so there might be a market for that. Fluoride's in other things. Fluoride is in certain drugs. There's a class of antibiotics called the fluoroquinolones. So fluoride. These drugs have a black box warning that is recommended by the FDA, saying that this drug should not be used if there's any other alternative, because these drugs harm everything. So what fluoride does is it's what you could call a blocker of electricity or a dielectric blocker. And we are electric beings. We talk all the time about the electric current along the inner mitochondrial membrane is one of the ways we produce energy. We have water networks on the outside of the proteins inside our cells. Those water networks stack, the layers of water stack in a liquid crystal, and that is a battery that uses an electric charge. So if you have fluoride in the system, it blocks that electrical flow. So it will decrease your energy production, both from your batteries of the stored water in the water, the charge stored in water, and the efficiency of the mitochondria. So the fluoride blocks energy production. As I mentioned, we know it harms the nervous system. These antibiotics cause rupture of various things. They can cause neuropathy. They can cause the rupture of the aorta. They can cause the rupture of a tendon. So they weaken all the tissues which are held tight, like let's say a tendon is held tight by the electric current going through those tissues. So if you take a dielectric blocker, then you disrupt that current, that tissue weakens and it ruptures. And that's what happens with the fluoroquinolone antibiotics, which even the FDA says never use those if there's any other alternative, because these side effects can be permanent and they can kill you. If your aorta ruptures, you're probably going to die. Now, there's fluoride in a lot of other drugs. As an example, the antidepressants like Prozac and Lexapro and Celexa, that class of antidepressant drugs has fluoride in them as well. So if you are on any of those drugs, I would recommend trying to find a fluoride-free alternative, because no amount of fluoride is good. Of course, it doesn't necessarily kill you in the short term, but I would rather err on the side of safety and not have fluoride in your body. In fact, you might, if you have a well and you live in an area where there's some elevated fluoride in certain natural water supplies where you live, I would get your well tested to make sure it's not high in fluoride. Now, usually a good source of water that doesn't have fluoride is spring water, although that's not always true. So if you're buying spring water, you want to look at the measured levels of fluoride. Now, it can be filtered out of your water. If you use a reverse osmosis system, you can remove the fluoride from your water. But if just a basic filter typically doesn't remove fluoride. So just getting the carbon filter that you might have automatically in your refrigerator or one of those things on your sink top, those do not remove fluoride.
So let's say you're someone who has been drinking fluoridated water or using fluoridated toothpaste. What do you do? How do you get the fluoride out of your system? Is there a way that you can actually detox yourself?
As far as I know, there's no specific way to detox, but everything recycles in our body. So over a period of time, the fluoride will go lower and lower. Now, how the nervous system doesn't develop as well in the presence of fluoride is a theory of why children have a lower IQ, and it affects different areas of the brain, like the hippocampus, the pineal gland, and different areas of the brain differently. So the hippocampus and the pineal gland are thought to be areas that are hit more with fluoride than other areas. And there's also a mechanism where fluoride, when it combines with aluminum, causes a disruption of what's called the blood-brain barrier. So normally, as our blood flows and our cerebral spinal fluid flows, those are always kept separate. And there's a membrane there called the blood-brain barrier that doesn't allow fluoride or aluminum to come through. But if fluoride combines with aluminum, then more aluminum combined with fluoride gets into the brain. And that's what they find in Alzheimer's disease, is more aluminum in the brain if you've been exposed to fluoride. So there's no reason to have fluoride despite, and this is my opinion, but despite what your dentist tells you, or despite what your public health officer, because public health just recently declared that one of the big achievements of modern public health was fluoridating water. That's one of the big achievements of public health. Unfortunately, or I don't know, unfortunately, but I have a master's degree in public health. So that means nothing. Those people are brain dead.
Maybe they've been drinking too much of the fluoridated water.
Yeah, I think that's what it is you start drinking the fluoridated water and your reasoning goes to pot.
And who knows, like tampering with water from a tooth decay or cavity standpoint just seems kind of like a stretch. It seems almost like an excuse for why they're fluoridating the water. And the fact that it correlates with brain problems makes more sense as to why the water would be fluoridated, just from a, kind of trying to keep us under control standpoint. Again, that's conjecture. That's a theory. Just the whole tooth decay thing seems like quite a stretch. And I agree. It doesn't seem like the people promoting fluoridated water have a whole lot of reasoning going on. They seem kind of like they're just following what they're told to represent. So I was thinking about this because I remember when I was younger and went to the dentist, they would make you like put those fluoride, almost like a mouth guard type thing in your mouth. And then I remember you started telling us to refuse taking those. Is this something that you should bring up with your dentist, the fluoride issue? Or is this something that they know about? What do you think about that?
Well, yes, you should definitely, especially if you have kids, just because they'll always paint the kid's teeth with fluoride, and then the kid will swallow some of that, and some of that will absorb into them systemically. And that might mean a drop in a few points of IQ, which, may not affect their life. But it could be, like so many things in nature, it could be that some kids are more susceptible, Or if a kid has a lot of dental work and they're going to the dentist all the time, they could maybe get a significant amount of fluoride that could cause a problem down the road. Why take that risk, especially when the evidence points to, there's not more cavities in places that don't use fluoride in their water. So to say that, oh, this is going to help his teeth, the data doesn't support that. Dentists, they're taught in dental school to believe that fluoride prevents cavities. So you're not going to, that's a belief. It's like, believing in God. You're not going to talk somebody out of believing in God. You're not going to talk a dentist out of believing in fluoride. That's what they were taught. And once you have a belief, if something comes up that kind of dispels that belief, if that belief is strong, you ignore it. So you see the study from Harvard saying kids have a lower IQ on fluoridated water than not. That doesn't even enter your consciousness. You just like, no, I have this belief. Fluoride's good. Fluoride prevents cavities. But it looks like fluoride's bad. Fluoride's not a mineral or an element that the body uses. It causes other problems besides what we've talked about. It can cause hypothyroidism. They've shown that there's double the amount of low thyroid, hypothyroidism, in communities that have fluoridated water versus communities that don't. And we know that the halogens like fluoride, because iodine is in the same class as fluoride as far as its charge. And so fluoride gets substituted for iodine, and your thyroid needs iodine. That's what the thyroid hormones are, is a protein with iodine in it. So you get fluoride instead of iodine, the thyroid hormone doesn't work.
So as you mentioned before, the fluoride it's a natural element, and you just mentioned that the body doesn't really use it. So what is the purpose of fluoride just in terms of life itself, or do you know?
Well, as far as I know, there's no purpose for it in life, but it's part of the cosmos and part of the earth. So, it's not something unnatural. It's just that, like arsenic is toxic to life, fluoride is toxic to life, lead is toxic to life, mercury is toxic to life. These things, don't have a role in our physiology. And that's probably because, they don't fit in with the way life works. And so life excludes those, and life that can exclude those because there's too much of it in their environment, they die off. And that's just the way it is. You can't live with lead. You can't live with mercury. You can't live with fluoride. But unfortunately, humans think they can outsmart, the natural systems and go, hey, no, fluoride makes the surface of the teeth stronger. Hey, let's utilize that fact. Who cares if we poison a few brain cells? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense that, there's reasons for why these elements exist, but they're not necessarily important components to your physiology or the way you live, and can be toxic, as you mentioned, some, lead and mercury and whatnot. Is there anything else that our viewers should know about fluoride? Any other tips that they should leverage in their own lives?
Yeah, I would probably ask your doctor or Google any drug you're prescribed to make sure there's not fluoride. Again, I would not let a dentist paint your teeth with fluoride, even though, supposedly you don't swallow a lot of that. But again, I don't see that there's proof that there's benefit. And I would get the fluoride-free toothpaste and then find out, does your community fluoridate your water? And if so, you've got to either filter it with the reverse osmosis system or some other system that removes fluoride, or you need to get water from another source. Spring water is typically what I recommend, is that's kind of a natural source of water that is naturally purified. But it can be high in fluoride. Not every spring is going to be good.
All right, so those are some tips on how you can start to avoid this fluoride, avoid this toxin. You don't want to be poisoning your own brain cells, and you especially don't want your kids consuming fluoride if there's evidence pointing to the harm that it causes. So take these into consideration, go implement them. Now, if you're someone who wants you or even your family to have a completely crafted plan where we'll do a deep dive into your health history, your environment, we can look at type of water you're drinking, etc. We do have custom health and wellness plans. You can check out the link in the description to learn more about that. We also have a coaching option where you'll actually work with me, my dad, and our team of experts in calls similar to how these videos are constructed, where we'll answer all your questions and really make sure you're executing everything we're teaching you. So that option's there if you want it. If you just want the free stuff, go check out the Quantum Possibility YouTube channel or Facebook fan page, depending on where you're watching this. We have tons of content on there. It's totally free. Just make sure you implement it, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks, Dad.
See ya.